I am absolutely going to testify. I won't even say his name. He is an evil being and is going to pay.
Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time.
I was just, living in this shame, living in all this sort of stuff of my past, and I wasn't able to move on. It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, telling me they love me and, just turn their back on you in a second.
The entire courtroom held its breath. For a moment, time seemed to freeze as Diddy's calm, collected mask slipped right off his face. His hands balled into fists, his jaw clenched tight, and just like that, the atmosphere turned electric. All it took was one name: Justin Bieber. You won't believe what happened next. Right in the middle of day 2 of the trial, Diddy completely lost his cool, and the reason? Justin had just gone public, throwing his support behind Cassie. The fallout was immediate. Security had to intervene, and what unfolded after that left the entire courtroom, even the judge, stunned.
Wow! I feel violated right now. Wow.
Lean into me again. You smell amazing. How old are you?
Thank you.
How old are you?
I'm 16. I'll be 17 in like 2 weeks.
I don't ever remember smelling that good at 16. That was bad. Wow, look at your eyes. Look at what a beautiful...
Bieber turned 15, and it suddenly seemed that Hollywood was keen to almost initiate him. I think that's the right word. Like there was almost like this initiation that he needed to go through. So I want you to be now super uncomfortable and watch this video of an interaction between him and none other than Diddy. Take a listen.
Justin, you ever seen the movie For the Times of Their Lives? Like, where we hanging out and what we doing? We can't really disclose, but it's definitely a 15-year-old's dream. I have been given custody of him. He signed to Usher. I'm signed to Usher. I had legal guardianship of Usher when he did his first album. I did Usher's first album. I don't have legal guardianship of him, but for the next 48 hours, he's with me. So and we gonna go full.
Young Justin Bieber, who was signed by Usher, involved with Scooter Braun. Now all of a sudden he's being put in the hands of Diddy, who, it is true, he became the legal guardian for Usher. You can look up all of the allegations of what Diddy did. The allegations are essentially that Diddy very much initiated Usher. As we are going through these lawsuits and Diddy is in prison, we are recognizing that everybody knew. This was an open secret about what Diddy was doing. So it just begs the question, who allowed Justin Bieber to be in the presence of this man, knowing what he was up to, allegedly up to? That seems to be very clear.
Do you think the person that the you of then was on a path of self-destruction?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I would have, for sure, 100%. Yeah. It would have been no bueno. It was bad. I don't know if I'd be alive, for sure. It was dark. So I'm very, very grateful to have influences in my life that have played a huge part in me seeing their relationship with Jesus and their relationship with their wives and their relationship with their kids and saying, that's what I want. But I want to definitely tell my story so that if that resonates to anybody, that they can hopefully, but yeah, just protecting those moments, because people take for granted encounters. And
Day 2 began with a strange kind of silence, as though the room itself sensed something about to explode. Walking in with his strong legal team, Diddy exuded that false courtroom assurance. He seemed cool on the surface, but his eyes betrayed him. Like he was expecting a ghost from his past to surface at any moment. They were flying, searching, scanning. And then the security came in. This was not usual for a celebrity trial. No, this was different. Extra security officers positioned close to Diddy's table. One stayed behind his chair, another by the aisle, motionless, only observing. It was as though someone had murmured a warning. Something might go wrong today. And just when things couldn't become more heated, Cassie entered. She didn't require designer armor or showy entrances. She chose a basic black dress with a clean white collar, understated but commanding. She didn't walk in alone either. Her buddies followed her like a shield from the tempest she was walking into. That contrast, it said everything. Diddy paid for security. Cassie brought individuals who genuinely cared. But here's when things got truly odd. Diddy couldn't quit checking his phone, over and over, scrolling like he was seeking for something. And each time, his look darkened. Until finally, his lawyer rushed across and took the phone away. That's when I saw it. Diddy's hand was shaking. Not just a twitch, shaking. Meanwhile, on the prosecution's side, it appeared like they were cooking up a secret. Notes passed, whispers exchanged behind files. One prosecutor kept demonstrating something on her tablet, and every time, another would nod, like puzzle pieces were finally falling into place. They were waiting for a minute, and it was coming closer. Diddy's lead attorney tried to play it cool, leaning in to murmur reassurances, even resting a hand on Diddy's shoulder. Classic keep it together move. But Diddy? He shrugged him off. Hard, so hard the lawyer had to catch himself on the table. Then the judge entered, and you didn't need a law degree to know. Something was off. On day one, she was collected, neutral. But now? She looked like a teacher who just got word that the class troublemaker brought pyrotechnics. Her attention focused in on Diddy's table, and she leaned in to say something to her clerk, who promptly took up the phone. What nobody in that courtroom knew yet was that Diddy had just seen something online, minutes before the hearing started. And whatever it was, it rattled him. Bad. His staff tried to cover it up, tried to hide the phone, but it was too late. The damage was done. He had previously seen Justin Bieber's post. Then came the bailiff's call. The courtroom stood. The tension? You could cut it with a whisper. The jurors were plainly picking up on it, staring at one another like, what's going on? One woman even asked for water, her hands quivering as she lifted the cup to her lips. And there was Diddy, stone motionless but trembling on the inside. His leg jumped frantically beneath the table, a thick vein pulsating on his forehead. His lawyer continued placing papers in front of him, possibly hoping the legal jargon would distract him. But Diddy merely swept them away, gaze set forward, his breathing harsh and unsteady. It was like seeing a dam poised to burst. Everyone in that courtroom could sense it. We just didn't know what the trigger would be, or how devastating the debris may get. The wall clock ticked louder, louder, like it was counting down. And we all knew. Diddy's beautiful image, it was dangling on a thread. And in just a moment, that thread was going to snap in front of everyone.
Let's talk about the fact that Combs' co-defendant in a civil case, a case, by the way, that accuses him and this co-defendant, another A-lister, of rape. This guy is once again slamming the attorney behind the case, insisting that he be sanctioned for allegedly not doing his job. We're talking, of course, about Sean Carter, better known as Jay-Z, once again calling out attorney Tony Busby, calling out his character, more specifically into question, claiming that the Texas attorney's filings have, quote, substantial. Now, we've talked about this before, but basically, a civil lawsuit was filed against Sean Combs on behalf of a Jane Doe who says that she was raped by Combs and another celebrity at a home after the Video Music Awards in 2000.
Yeah. So, yeah. I just want to protect her, you know? I don't want her to lose it. I don't want her to, you know, go through anything I went through. I don't wish that upon anybody. So, yeah, if she ever needs me, I mean, just think about how young I was and so impressionable. And you have everybody telling me how awesome I am at all times, you know, and like.
It's like taking a kid and putting a kid in a room full of nothing but sweets.
Right.
And just saying, I'll be back in 2 days.
Exactly. I just want people to understand, like, the psychology behind why I potentially could have problems in my life.
While everyone had their eyes focused to the courtroom drama, something big exploded online, and scarcely anybody saw it coming. Out of nowhere, Justin Bieber delivered a bombshell on social media that sent shockwaves not just across the internet, but straight into that courtroom. In the middle of the trial, Bieber publicly tweeted a message supporting Cassie, one that rocked the music world and stunned everyone watching the case unfold. And here's the twist. Bieber and Diddy weren't just industry acquaintances, they had history. Remember those clips of young Bieber at Diddy's opulent parties? The ones that made headlines? Diddy often referred to himself as Justin's mentor, his older brother. He even claimed to have helped develop Bieber into the star he became, which is exactly why this statement felt like a gut punch. a betrayal that no one expected. And this wasn't one of those nebulous, sending love posts. Not even close. Bieber laid it all out. He talked about specific moments, times he observed things directly, like the after party in 2015, where he claimed Diddy squeezed Cassie's arm too tightly, or interviews where Diddy would cut Cassie off mid-sentence and speak over her like she wasn't even there. These weren't rumors. These were genuine observations from someone who was really in the room. And then came the courtroom mayhem. As soon as the trial broke for break, Bieber's posts started spreading like wildfire. People in the hallways were forming tiny circles, phones out, whispering and scrolling. It seemed like the air had moved. A court officer had to step in, telling everyone to power down their gadgets before walking back inside. Legal teams scrambled, some even printing out screenshots for their attorneys to evaluate on the fly. Jurors looked around, evidently picking up on the dramatic change in energy. Something enormous had just happened, and they sensed it. Bieber added an old photo in the post, one that said 1,000 words without a single caption. It was him and Cassie at a music event smiling. But if you looked closely, Cassie's eyes revealed a different story. Then came Bieber's caption, raw, intimate, and full of regret. He wrote about recognizing Cassie's strength and apologized for remaining silent for so long. And for Diddy, the timing couldn't have been worse. Within minutes, over 270 million people had access to that post. News outlets jumped on it instantly. This wasn't simply entertainment news anymore. This was a cultural moment. A global superstar had just taken a clear, unfiltered stand, right in the middle of an active trial. Court reporters practically lost it. One rushed from her seat to summon her editor. Another was hammering at her keyboard like she was penning the tale of the decade. A network journalist mouthed across the aisle, "Did you see it?" Everyone in that courtroom knew. This just transformed the whole game. The talk got so loud, a bailiff had to calm the crowd. People were glued to their phones, astonished. Some looked over at Diddy, attempting to read his reaction. Others glanced at Cassie, who sat there serene, clearly aware, but completely in control. And what did Bieber's message hit even harder? His words, specific, passionate, and honest. He called Cassie brave and truthful, then acknowledged something that seemed really human. He stated the things he saw years ago didn't make sense at the time, but now they do. He confessed to being disappointed in himself for not seeing the control and manipulation while it was right in front of him. The moment Diddy's lawyer noticed the message, he rushed into action, leaning in, shielding Diddy from another attorney's phone, hurriedly giving instructions to clear the table of any gadgets. But it was too late. Someone had previously shown Diddy the screen. He stared at it, eyes frozen, then expanded. You could feel the shift in the room. Those sitting close noticed it too. His face transformed in real time. The damage was done.
Yeah, I definitely feel protective of her. It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, telling me they love me and, just turn their back on you in a second. So yeah, it's hard because I want her to know that, she can count on me, but at the end of the day, I'm never gonna force myself to be in a relationship with her. It has to be natural, right? So I just kind of, let her do her thing, and if she ever needs me, I'm gonna be here for her. But yeah, just protecting those moments because people take for granted.
I'm not even kidding. Watching that clip makes me emotional because he is saying so much without really saying anything. Protect Billie Eilish from what? From who? He did an interview back in 2020 with Zane Lowe. I think this was on Apple Music. And he was speaking about another young artist that was coming up, Billie Eilish, and Eilish. And he was basically speaking about how he wanted to protect her because she was now another young person, a rising artist in the industry. And sort of out of nowhere, he became quite overcome with emotion. Take a listen. Years old, and I should mention he was signed by Usher to a label that was owned jointly by both Scooter Braun and Usher, and he was considered Usher's protege. He has been described Usher as his mentor. The Bieber, Justin Bieber, is continuing the purge. He has now moved to, his original mentor. So this is a very big story. And the reason why we should discuss this and we should not diminish what is happening, it's not celebrity drama. This is actually the fall of Babylon that we are witnessing, Hollywood Babylon, that is.
When Diddy saw Bieber's post, something in him snapped. You could practically watch it happen, like someone hit a switch inside his skull. At first, he just froze. His eyes widened, his mouth dropped open. There was pure disbelief written all over his face. Then, just seconds later, that astonishment twisted into something darker. Betrayal. You could see his eyebrows knit together like he was piecing it all together, and understanding he'd been stabbed in the back. But here's where it gets chilling. Because that treachery didn't stay quiet, it boiled over. His nostrils flared, his jaw tightened so firmly it appeared like he may break a tooth. The tension was so great, you could almost hear the grinding of his teeth across the room. A woman sitting a few rows behind informed reporters afterward that Diddy's hands started trembling like he couldn't control them. Wait, he reached out to grab some documents his lawyer offered him, but his hands were shaking so severely the papers slipped right through his fingers. They spread all over the courthouse floor. That's when the room got silent. Everyone turned to look. Then came the true red flag. Diddy instantly stood up. But it wasn't a casual stretch or movement in his seat. No, this was sudden, forceful, like something inside him was going to explode. The bailiff didn't waste a second. He stepped forward promptly. You could tell by his body language. He'd seen this kind of stuff before. He knew trouble when he saw it brewing. And then Diddy spoke, low but clear enough that folks in the first few rows heard every word. After everything I did for that kid, loyalty doesn't mean anything anymore. Then he mumbled something about consequences. And whatever it was, it made his lawyer fear. He grabbed Diddy's arm and yanked him back down into his seat. The lawyer leaned down and whispered something urgent in his ear. But Diddy? He just shook his head, like he was done listening to everyone. His breathing got heavy, strained, like he'd just run up a flight of stairs. And the court sketches from that very moment, honestly, they're haunting. The eyes spoke it all, wide, unblinking, almost bulging. His jaw was clenched so hard you could feel the stress radiating from the veins in his neck. Even the courtroom sketch artist, someone who'd recorded over a decade of high-stakes trials, said she'd never seen somebody with such an intense look. And you best believe the prosecutors noticed. One subtle move from the lead prosecutor, a barely there hand signal to her assistant, and boom, the assistant slipped out through a side door. No fuss, no delay. Later, it all made sense. That quiet move, it was a call to bring in a certain witness earlier than expected, someone who could immediately respond to the claims Bieber had just made public. Then something odd happened. The security guards in the courtroom, they exchanged a wordless stare. You know the glance that says, "Be ready just in case"? Two of them gently shifted themselves, edging a bit closer to Diddy's table, trying not to draw attention. One guy unclipped something from his belt, not drawing a weapon, but definitely preparing for anything. And that's when Diddy's entire demeanor broke. Earlier, he'd been cool, collected, almost smug, sitting up straight, casually jotting notes, offering occasional confident nods. But now, that cool persona evaporated. He started shifting in his seat, running his hands over his face like trying to wash the tension away. He strained at his tie as if it were suddenly strangling him. Then it happened. The moment that sent a wave through the courtroom. Diddy smacked his palm against the table. A glass of water tipped over and broke over the floor. Gasps echoed. Court reporters froze. And then came the whisper, just loud enough for others nearby to catch. "I'll make sure he never works in this town again. Neither of them will." The reaction? Immediate. His own lawyer had to reach over and physically hold Diddy down, keeping him in his seat. The judge? She wasn't tolerating any of it. One hard bang of the gavel, and she called for an emergency 15-minute recess. But that little break? It was the worst thing that could have happened to Diddy. He had nothing but time, to stew, to spiral. His legal team clustered around him, apparently rattled. You could read the panic on their faces. And then, Cassie returned. But this wasn't the same Cassie from day one. She marched back in like someone reborn. Shoulders back, chin high, eyes set on the jury. Gone was the shy, frightened figure who averted everyone's sight. She looked straight at Diddy, not with fear, but with complete indifference, like he didn't even matter anymore. Then she released the bombshells. First up, never-before-seen text messages. Texts from Diddy to Cassie that made jaws drop across the room. One string from 2016 shows Diddy shooting off 17 unanswered texts, demanding to know why she hadn't picked up. Another message had him inquiring for her particular location, which room, at which hotel. I need to know where you are every minute. That's the agreement if you want to keep your career. The courtroom fell strangely silent. You could hear the buzz of the ceiling fans as Cassie recalled how Diddy policed her life in the music industry. She testified that there was an actual list. Male musicians she was forbidden to speak to unless Diddy was there. And yeah, Justin Bieber was on it. When she asked why, Diddy's answer was chilling. Don't question me. And when she did anyway, he grabbed her arm at an after-party and whispered a threat in her ear. Cassie's voice didn't shake. She wasn't shaken. She provided a crystal-clear picture of what it was like to be separated, watched, and controlled. Everything she described, it eerily echoed what Bieber had recently put online. From surveillance to intimidation, it all lined up, like puzzle pieces clicking into place. Even though she hadn't spoken to Bieber in years, the connections between their stories were clear. Then followed the prosecutor's question. Why didn't you come forward earlier? Her answer hit like a punch to the gut. He told me no one would believe me. He said he controlled who worked in this industry and who didn't. You could see it. 2 jurors reacting instantaneously. One brushed away tears, another scribbled notes, and underlined the same sentence 3 times. And then, boom, security footage from a hotel in 2018. The prosecution had it queued up. The video shows Cassie trying to speak with a male artist in a hotel lobby. Moments later, Diddy strolled in, placed an arm around her, and escorted her away. The bodily language? Exactly like she described. Word for word. You could see Diddy starting to lose it. He leaned over to his lawyer, whispering furiously, pointing at the screen like attempting to influence the narrative one final time. Cassie didn't stop there. She dropped specific occurrences with accurate dates, locations, and even names of persons who were there. March 8, 2017, Standard Hotel, New York. June 22, 2017, his residence in Miami. September 12, 2018, backstage at the VMAs. Each date sent Diddy's lawyer into a furious page-flipping frenzy. And then Cassie said that since Bieber spoke out, others had started reaching out too. My phone hasn't stopped. People are ready to recount what they saw. Then came the final blow. Cassie testified that once, after speaking to Bieber at an event, Diddy grabbed her aside and said, "Even Justin knows what happens to people who cross me." With Bieber now openly defending her, the threat seemed like a career-ending confession. And as Cassie kept speaking, you could physically see Diddy unraveling. Each fresh insight made him squirm, whisper, worry. That impenetrable music mogul image, disintegrating in real time. And everyone watching knew, this wasn't just a trial anymore. It was a reckoning.
It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, telling me they love me and, just turn their back on you in a second. So if she ever needs me, I'm going to be here for her. But yeah, just protecting those moments because people take for granted encounters, and I just want to protect her, I don't want her to go through anything I went through. I don't wish that upon anybody. Yeah, if she ever needs me, I'm just a call away.
Do you realize how important your story is? Every time I have a conversation with someone who's been through this unique type of experience, I'm searching for some kind of truth that can help.
I commend you for going there and asking the tough questions and the things that people don't want to talk about, and they don't want to go there because it's revealing, and I want people to take a look at my story, and hopefully my words can make a difference.
And weeks after the initial filing, Busby submitted an amended complaint naming Jay-Z as the celebrity who allegedly participated. They wanted copies of these videos for themselves. And I've talked to lawyers about this before. There's a big advantage to having the electronic video, the electronic evidence yourself, right? You don't have to always go over to the other office. You can view the materials on your own. It's a way to better prepare for your defense. And Sean Combs' lawyers argue that under the federal rules of criminal procedure, electronic data that is in the government's possession, Judge Subramanian denied the defense's motion to amend the protective order, but without prejudice, meaning this issue could be revisited. So Subramanian's order reads, quote, "While the government objects to handing the videos over, they provide several options for a defendant to consider that would permit the defense to view the videos, access the information they're looking for, and even allow them to manipulate the video."
Just when everyone thought things couldn't be any more dramatic, the prosecutor walked to the center of the courtroom with a folder. "Your Honor, we would like to provide evidence that directly contradicts Mr. Combs' contention that Ms. Ventura recently invented these charges." She took out her tablet and plugged it to the courtroom's display system. The screens around the room displayed text messages between Justin Bieber and Cassie from 2017. The prosecution highlighted a specific discussion that caused jurors to lean forward. Cassie wrote, "I don't know what to do anymore. He keeps track of everything. He threatened that if I spoke to anyone, he would ensure that I never worked again." Bieber's response, Cass, "This is not typical. What he's doing is not acceptable. You need to speak with someone who can help." Diddy jumped out of his chair as soon as the messages came. The sound of it scraping on the floor startled everyone. His face was glowing crimson, and his eyes bulged. The composed music mogul was no more. His attorney grabbed his arm, attempting to pull him back down. "Don't do this, Sean," he whispered loud enough for the front rows to hear. But Diddy was not listening. He actually pushed his lawyer's hand away so forcefully that the man lurched backward. "All of this is a lie," Diddy exclaimed, pointing at Cassie. "You know damn well that is not what happened. Where's your loyalty after all I've done for you?" His voice became louder with each word. "You both are making this up." The judge quickly banged her gavel 3 times. "Sit down now, Mr. Combs, or I will have you removed." Her words sliced through the noise like a dagger, but Diddy refused to stop. 2 security personnel moved quickly toward the defensive table. One positioned himself between Diddy and Cassie, and the other approached from behind. Court reporters scribbled furiously, documenting every detail of this unexpected implosion. The jury watched in complete shock. One elderly woman in the back row really covered her mouth with her hand. A young man in the front row leaned away from Diddy, physically separating himself from the outburst. "Your Honor, we need a break," Diddy's lawyer shouted, attempting to retake control of the situation. But Diddy had already turned toward the evidence screen, pointing at the messages. "Those are phony. They manufactured the messages." He was gesticulating frantically now, his words booming off the walls. "This is a setup," Justin never stated that. The evidence was disastrous for Diddy's case. These 5-year-old messages fully refuted his claim that Cassie fabricated up allegations for money or fame. She had confided in Bieber about the same behavior patterns for years before launching a complaint. The judge pounded the gavel again. She ordered the bailiff to remove the jury immediately. As the 12 men and women walked out, the majority of them couldn't stop staring at Diddy, who was still standing and shouting. The security guards approached, one on each side of him. "Sir, you must calm down now," one replied firmly, resting a hand on Diddy's shoulder. For a minute, it appeared that Diddy might also shove the cop. Instead, he became silent, breathing heavily as the realization of what had transpired dawned on him. The damage was done. Diddy's controlled image, which he had maintained for decades, had broken in front of everyone. Judge Marlowe didn't hold back even after the jury was safely out of the room. She stood up behind the bench, pointed squarely at Diddy, and gave the smackdown of a lifetime. "Mr. Combs, this is a courtroom, not a recording studio. You have no control over what occurs here." Her voice sliced through the room like a knife. "If you make another outburst like that, I will hold you in contempt. You will spend the rest of the trial in a cell, appearing only when required." She was not done. The judge ordered that a psychiatric evaluation be completed before the next day's sessions. She then implemented new security protocols. 2 officers would always be within arm's length of Diddy. His lawyers were unable to speak with him unless an officer was present. His telephone privileges were fully terminated. Diddy's legal team huddled in the corner of the courtroom, like a football team losing by 40 points. The head attorney continued shaking his head, while another made frantic phone calls. A third lawyer was furiously making notes, occasionally looking up at Diddy with an expression that said, "We're in trouble." Their body language conveyed the entire tale. They were well aware that their case had suffered a significant setback. When the jury returned, their reactions were obvious. A middle-aged woman in the front row moved her chair slightly away from the defense table. An elderly man who had been taking extensive notes suddenly sat with his arms crossed and pen undisturbed. Most telling was juror number 8, a young professional who had smiled at Diddy on the first day, but now refused to look at him. Meanwhile, the prosecution team maintained flawless poker expressions, but it was clear they were thrilled. The lead prosecutor sorted her documents quietly, occasionally glancing at Diddy with apparent satisfaction. The assistant had to conceal a little smile behind her palm at one point. Security did not goof around for the rest of the day. 2 officers stood squarely behind Diddy's chair, no longer pretending to be casual. Another person stood at the courthouse door, hand resting on his belt. The message was plain to everybody. They weren't taking any chances with Diddy's actions. Legal experts in the gallery were unable to contain themselves. A former federal prosecutor muttered to the guy next to him, "I just lost right there." Law professors who had come to observe the proceedings were busily writing in their notebooks. A defense attorney from another high-profile case shook his head and mumbled, "Amateur hour." Cassie maintained her cool under all circumstances. She sat in perfect posture, hands folded in her lap, face neutral. When Diddy had his tantrum, she did not flinch, respond, or give him the satisfaction of displaying terror. The contrast could not have been more apparent, her entire control versus his complete lack thereof. Day 2 marked a significant shift from the previous morning. Diddy had strolled in as if he owned the room. Crisp designer outfit and a confident smile. Now he stumbled out, his tie loosened, surrounded by lawyers who appeared to have aged 10 years in one afternoon. He focused on the floor, avoiding the crowd of reporters in the hallway. The most revealing moment occurred when Diddy's principal lawyer placed his hand on his client's back to help him out. Diddy shrugged it off like he did that morning. However, this time it was not due to confidence. It stemmed from defeat. What we saw in the courtroom was more than simply evidence. It was about character. Cassie remained calm and powerful, whereas Diddy completely broke down when Justin Bieber supported her. Their actual personalities emerged under strain. Let's get real. The jurors witnessed Diddy lose control and threaten individuals in open court. Regardless of whether further evidence emerges later, that instant most likely settled the case. The major concern today is, who else will speak up? Justin Bieber just broke the unspoken celebrity code of safeguarding one another. That door is now wide open, and more stars may stroll through it to confront Diddy.